Listen, guys, I think it's safe to say that Marvel Rivals has done a pretty damn good job with the 30-plus heroes that we have so far. As a massive Marvel fan since I was a kid, this is like the dream game, seeing all their kits' designs, personalities come to life. So much so, though, that I need more, right? I've got a fever, and the only prescription is more perfect designs. Like, the idea of the Sinister Six all being in the game at some point in time is awesome, right? Like, 3 years down the line, there is some cool potential with Marvel Rivals, and today we're going to do part 2 that I didn't plan on doing, but we did a part 1 of the heroes that I want to see come to the game the most, but the comment section, they demanded more, and it was tough to make a list so small, and so we're going to expand that today. Now, I'm going to be honest, it was still hard to make this list. Like, there are so many heroes and villains that I want to include, but I did my best to include what I think would serve the greatest purpose within the game, how they're going to work, what role are they going to be, Vanguard, Strategist, and Duelist, and kind of like a sample of the move sets, a little bit of what I imagine. Let's go ahead and jump on in. All right, guys, so to kick things off on all the characters that I want to see in Rivals, we start with one that I think is inevitable, and that is Matthew Murdock, Daredevil. I think it's only a matter of time until we see this guy come into the game, and here's the thing, guys. First of all, I'm not a game dev, so I'm not exactly going to be perfect with some of my envisioning of the character, if you will, and I don't want anything that we kind of already have within the game, but I think with all that being said, Daredevil, it can be his own thing. I think it'd be really cool to kind of focus on him being able to see through walls. Obviously, this is a strong concept. Maybe it can, be stopped with combat or anything like that. But this guy's kit kind of like writes itself, right? He's got the batons that he can use for combat, bouncing off things. He can use the kind of probably like Moon Knight to get around the map with his mobility. Definitely something like a double jump. And his whole shtick, right, is about this kind of chrono vision to be able to see through walls, through objects, and maybe even ping and let your allies see the enemies as well. I don't know. All I know is it'd be very cool to have some version of Daredevil. The concept design is just too cool, man, just to see him in the Rival style. Plus, the show's coming out, which I am pumped for. If you haven't seen Daredevil, the show, you don't even need to be a Marvel fan. It's a banger. All right, moving on to the next hero. There are a couple people here that I have no idea how they're going to implement them into the game, but all I know is we have to have them, and that leads me to Taskmaster. Taskmaster in this freaking game would be epic. And I don't know, like, I've seen people come up with ideas like you spawn into the game with a bunch of random abilities of the enemy's team. I think that's kind of funny. Obviously very clunky to play. What I thought was really cool was an idea that if he killed a tank, he would get a tank passive and get like a bigger health bar. If he killed a healer, he'd be able to get abilities that would help him heal his allies. And then if he killed a DPS, he'd be in like damage mode, with his ultimate being able to focus and like make one of those modes like that much better. And it really just kind of speaks to his kit. He also just has like he could have like a basic ability of like a good sword and shield move with some mobility that he would go in and out of, and then he could copy kits. Loki's ultimate obviously already, does this, but I think to do this on more of an ability level would be a cool design for Taskmaster. Definitely see him as a Vanguard. To me, that's what fits Taskmaster's design. They've made him work in other Marvel games, so they surely have to make it in Rivals. And I just got to give credit to the art here. The design on this, all the art, by the way, the credit is in the description. The art design on this made me want him that much more. Okay, next one, another Vanguard, guys. And I was picking between Colossus and Juggernaut. And I'm going to go with Juggernaut. We could use them both. But the idea of Juggernaut in Rivals is peak. Now, obviously, nothing could stop the Juggernaut if you know him. And so my idea for him is this character that can just plow through destructible environments. Anything he goes through just gets wrecked, right? But at the same time, like Groot walls, obviously he can't be stopped. So just going through all of those and just being the destructor of that, and that's kind of his role for the team. Probably OP, but I was thinking that even maybe he can stop other people that are typically CC immune, like Luna in her ult or Punisher, things like that. I mean, nothing can stop the guy. He's charging them. Maybe he gets, health as he charges through multiple people. And I can see him having like a Reinhardt pin, if you guys played Overwatch, and being able to pin people down and just being this massive Vanguard force. We need Juggernaut. It's not a matter of time before we get him eventually. He's got to come. And I just see him fitting in a cool role for Rivals and maybe having a different effect of destructible environment, giving your team an alternate path or whatever it might be. And of course, for the ultimate voice line.
I'm the Juggernaut!
All right, so we take things to strategist now, and I don't really know how to do this one, but Kitty Pryde, right? Kitty Pryde being a strategist in this game, obviously with Lockheed being a part of her kit as well. You're going to hear me talk about phasing in a couple of kits today, and I think that Kitty Pryde kind of leads that, being able to maybe go through walls, right? Like, you know, you don't have to run around to the point. You can simply go through the wall to get to your point to heal them up, and then giving that ability to duelists or tanks to have them be able to escape or whatever that might be. Maybe your ultimate allows everybody to do that. The idea of her phasing in and out seems really cool, and maybe having like just really good mobility, right? Being able to like do double, triple jumps and just a highly mobile strategist sounds pretty sick to me. The DPS can be used through Lockheed or just having some combos herself. You know, maybe she uses some type of melee, or maybe she's just more focused on the healing aspect and keeping her team kind of alive through it all. Kind of like Storm does a little bit, like these AoE buffs that she could do. All I know is Kitty Pryde is definitely a X-Men not talked about enough, and I would love to see her in Rivals. All right, so Duelist. There's a lot to choose from, guys. There's a lot of Duelists to choose from, but I have to talk about Yondu. Guys, can you imagine Yondu in Rivals? First of all, you know the design would go so hard. Second of all, the developers, good luck on the design. I have no idea how you would make him fair. I don't want another like auto-aim character, but the idea of being able to use his arrow whistling in and out through enemies is too cool to pass up. And like maybe his ultimate, you can control it like a drone and it does like, you know, I don't know, enhanced damage. He can use it to jump and to move around. I don't know how they would nail the movement of the arrow. Obviously, he can kind of glide, and he has that little bit. The voice lines, the team up with Star-Lord. I mean, it's practically writing itself. All right, so next up, Duelist. We've got Vision. And I think I'm going to go with Duelist, although I like the idea of him having like a stance change. Not a lot of people talk about Vision. Very melee focused. He could be super fast flight, right? Maybe he has a speed form. But also, the guy could be a Vanguard or at least have a form like Wolverine does, where, you know, he's just taking on a lot more damage, a bit more indestructible kind of. And then, of course, like, if he wants to go all out, use his beam, and maybe the longer you have his beam on somebody, the more damage it does. There's some cool stuff he can do. He also can phase through things, as we've seen through the movies and comics, so maybe having a brief form of that where he can't, you know, be healed, attack, or anything like that, or contribute, but he can kind of go in and out and have good mobility. Vision, Wanda clearly would have a team up. Vision, and I'm sure actually a couple people would have a team up, which would work well with the game. More flyers added, which I think he works well, and then the form switching idea or the stance switch, I think is gonna we're gonna have kits like that come to Rivals. All right, so I said I did not want any heroes that are kind of too similar to other ones, and I think a lot of people are gonna see this one as that. But let me finish. She-Hulk. She-Hulk it's got to come to the game. I would love She-Hulk to come to the game, but I don't want it to be exactly like the Hulk. I do see her being a Vanguard, probably, even though she's going to be a much more athletic Hulk, right? More of like a WWE player than like what Hulk does in the smashing. Like, maybe she has, you know, a similar look and kit to him, but does things a lot more agile and quickly. And I could, you know, maybe something like an objection move. I don't know what you would do with her kit, but I think like a pro wrestling inspired influence athletic style is the way that I see her working. Whereas, you know, Hulk again is more of that big bruiser that we see. Probably stays in She-Hulk form as well. I don't see her transforming in and out of that. Maybe she does, but She-Hulk I think eventually will come to the game, potentially, but not for a long time. I know people want her to maybe be a skin for the Hulk, but their models are way too different for that to be a thing. So if she does come to Rivals, it would be through probably a new character. Now for the next hero, I'm proud of this one, guys. And this is would be our second, I guess, kind of stance switch like Cloak and Dagger. I just have Ant-Man on the image here, but Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ant-Man and the Wasp is a extremely cool concept to have. Obviously, they go together well, and Ant-Man could kind of instruct the ants to do different things, right? So you could have the ants like attack the enemy. Maybe Ant-Man is more of the cloak, but probably even better at DPS there. And then Wasp is more of the healer type. Obviously, Wasp allowing them to fly, and then has maybe more of range stuff, where Ant-Man's a bit more, in-person combat. He can get super big on his ults, or maybe tiny to, I don't know how you would do the tiny form in Rivals, but I would think Ant-Man's gonna work. I think Ant-Man will be a hero that we get eventually as well. Just kind of makes sense. Okay, guys, listen. Triple support is all the rage, right? You're healing. We need an anti-heal. People say Mysterio, the strategist. Now, this is going to be a tough one because I have a couple ones like this. Taskmaster, now Mysterio, kind of on Loki territory, but also not really. I think he could use, the green smoke gas to be a lot of his AoE healing, if you will, and he's a bit more of a AoE healer, but not as much, maybe, is the way he would work. But this guy being the master of deception and anti-healing is what I could see him providing the team. I saw one idea that his ultimate would make everybody Mysterio, so all the allies, all the opponents to the enemies. So they don't know who's who on their team, I think that idea is so overpowered, but awesome. Obviously, your team would be able to tell the difference, but just being that master of, trickery and illusion is a cool concept, and he would definitely be a strategist in my eyes. So Mysterio, don't know how they're going to do him, but would be cool to see him come to the game. But that's where we get to tricky territory, because for the next one, Mystique. And Mystique is, again, if we're going to have Taskmaster, how do you make this work? And listen, the perfect design I saw was this person who came up with kind of like a Sombra a little bit, right? Psylocke has that role, but this kind of stealth character that is going to be able to blend in potentially, right? So instead of copying kits, you copy the Luna and you can be the Luna. Maybe just being able to copy the appearance to blend in, and then she has like an assassin kit, right? So this idea has her where she has like double pistols that she iconically has, where they have one bullet in the chamber, but they do immense damage from behind. So maybe you transform into the Luna, you get behind the Doctor Strange, and bam, you do, huge damage. But then she's all about her flying kicks and crazy combos, again, as we've seen her fighting someone like Wolverine in the movies. Very agile character, wrapping around people just all over the place, but then can instantly disguise herself. And then if she's, attacked, maybe she can't disguise herself when you're in combat. That whole idea, I think, is different enough from Loki, but also is a cool way to have Mystique work as a duelist. I would say one of the more beloved characters in Marvel, and just a cool one to be able to see. All right, guys, few more left here. We move on to Nico Minoru. Now, some people don't know her, some people do, but the idea of Nico, I would say probably being a strategist. I saw an idea where you could do she uses her health pool to be able to give healing, but also do a lot of damage. So probably more on the side of Loki in the form of more kind of DPS healing at the same time, or maybe Adam Warlock is a better example. But I could see Nico having some of the most abilities in the game, like access to a ton of different spells and the way that she works. I know in a game I play Marvel Snap, she has a bunch of spells that she can utilize. And so having that same kind of magic kit where magic goes in the portal and has her options, I think giving that to Nico, but having some type of a downside maybe would be kind of cool to her, just her lore and how she works. But Nico would be one that I would like to see as well. Now, listen, I know what you're saying. Part 1, you got a lot of X-Men. Part 2, you can't have too many. And it's fine. I agree. But Iceman, I don't want to live in a world where we don't get Iceman into Marvel Rivals. Luna Snow, I get it. Ice is her thing. But she's a strategist. Iceman being a duelist or creating ice bridges, being able to give the entire team mobility. And it's like a drawing bridge. The idea of shooting and freezing constantly is annoying to go up against. But if we have Human Torch, hey, maybe that works out, right? Pyro. But no, I think having Iceman works out using big glaciers for AoE damage or just constant beams of attack. His kit can write itself very simply, and maybe it's a lot more of beam attacks, if you will. But the idea of being able to skate on the ice towards your opponent and then freeze them, this is my childhood coming to life, and I've always wanted to be Iceman. I'm telling you. So I think Iceman is definitely a big one that I would love to see. And last but not least, guys, we've got Thanos. All right, and I mentioned Thanos. I don't know if they do King Thanos or they make just regular Thanos work, but I know it's a dream of everybody. You got to play him in Fortnite, whatever. But playing Thanos in Rivals would be the ultimate experience, right? Obviously, maybe you gain the Infinity Stones over time. So, you can use the stones. Maybe he gets the Power Stone and his main melee is way stronger. And you get the Time Stone. You're able to manipulate. Whatever how they do it, but gaining the stones over time and giving him more abilities or access to more of his kit throughout the match is super cool. Like, we know when Thanos fought the Hulk, he beat the snot out of the Hulk without even trying, without the Power Stone, I think, right? To prove just how much of a Titan and Mad Titan that he is. And I think that's his base kit. But then he continues to get more and more powerful the longer the match goes on. I saw this ability, or this hinted ultimate that people came up with, but I'm going to give a twist to it. So people said his ultimate should be the snap, obviously, right? And it kills both allies and enemies, half of the team and half of their team, which is funny, but trolling, right? However, it would be super cool that that is what would happen, but it's a damage-based thing. So, like, let's say if you plan on it, you know, there's like maybe a bit of a build-up to it so the, you know, enemies can be ready for it as well. It's not instantaneous, but having like Magneto bubbles and Luna ults go on for your allies to keep everybody alive. He does the snap, and if you're not prepared, half of your team could die as a result. It's so overpowered, but Thanos is. I don't know how you do this guy without breaking him entirely, but he's got to be good, and he's got to be in Rivals, and I want to hear y'all's idea down below. Again, there's so many different heroes to include on this list. This is just a bit of the ones that I thought would be cool in addition to my part 1. And, you know, we're going to get a lot of Duelists, we know that, but, you know, I try to think of a lot of Vanguards and Strategists because the idea of having tons of options is super cool, and that's what I would love to see. I obviously didn't mention anybody that's been data mined. I'm going to leave that to other channels, not my cup of tea, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know you guys did the last one. If you did, and eventually we want to do a part 3, put it down below, and I love to see y'all's kit ideas and hero suggestions down there as well. If you enjoyed this, guys, subscribe. We're trying to build up to 100K, and we're swiftly getting there. And I really can't tell you how much it helps me as a creator. Just taking a few seconds if you enjoy the content to subscribe. It means a lot, guys. Anyway, have a good one. Have a great one. We'll see you on the next video, and happy Rivaling.